Yeah, there was not, I think we sold $150 a year, and then we sold another $1,500. We should have $2,000. We're live. Come. We good?
We ready?
We're ready.
Welcome to this regular meeting of the Readfield Select Board on Monday, October 21st, 2024. I'll call the meeting to order at 6:30. If you would please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. With the board's approval, I'd like to take the first part of communications out of order. Does anyone object? Take it away, Sean.
Well, Ryan, do you mind going up and introducing your team for us?
You want them all introduced individually or just as a collective group?
Oh, let's hear their names individually.
Sure.
I'll make them stand up too. Would you like me to stand up?
Awesome, let's do that.
That's what they were hoping for. So first off, thanks for having us tonight. This is the Class C State Championship Marinicut golf team. So 2 out of the last 3 years. Last year we came in second, so almost made it a three-peat. But any of you who were outside on Saturday of last week will know that it was a really rugged day to do much of anything outside, let alone try to hit a golf ball around 18 holes of championship state level golf. These guys out there that were playing did a remarkable job. I'll say for the entire team, they really epitomized team golf. Most coaches that have played against us this year know that 1 through 6, and there's 6 golfers that play in varsity matches. 1 through 6 were probably the deepest group out there, which really helped us on that Saturday. You count 4 of the top 6 scores, and out there it was like the Wild Wild West. I think James had 1 shot when he was teeing off on the first hole. He stepped back because it got this big gust of wind, probably 45, 50 miles an hour. Steps back. I was like, oh, that's a good move. He steps up again to hit it. All of a sudden, this branch like this big just flies in front of the tee box. He decides to hit it, and that's kind of the way it was. The balls were ballooning up and backwards if you hit into the wind, and then they were going like 40 yards further than you thought they were if you're going with the wind. So it was a crazy day, but it was a great day for the team. So I'll introduce, just kind of going this way up. Ethan Chilton, if you want to come up.
Where am I going?
You'll lead the way, and then everyone else will follow after that. So. Keep sniffing.
I step back this way towards the table, then there'll be room for everybody.
That's right.
Thank you.
Spread out. We'll practice this before the school board meeting, and then we'll have it down. This is a good run through. Wyatt Barrington. Lyle Smith. Bodie Fournier. Please, Mike. Brady Reba. Brady standing in front. There we go. Rylan. Josh Herzing. Ben Jewett. And James Moore.
Ryan, I assume they're each going to give it a little speech?
Yes, everyone. Yeah, especially Ethan, he wants to first.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah. No, I think they'll opt out of the speech.
Wait till they go back down.
Yeah.
Well, nice job, guys. I know I followed you around the course a couple of times the last few weeks, so I've seen a lot of hard work out there, and I know how difficult. I don't look back there. When you see yourself that big, it's horrible. You know, it's such a individual sport, but to play as a team and understand how that works is really something special. So congratulations again. Well done.
Bravo.
Hold on, yeah. Yeah, exactly. Josh will give the speech next time.
Who's going to tell them they all have to stay for the whole meeting?
Not me.
Okay.
I was going to wait till they all sat down first.
Yeah, one of them already asked if they could.
No, thanks very much for, I know that coming out one extra time means a lot to us to make sure that people know that we appreciate everybody's efforts in town and, doing this, it's a lot of fun to be a part of, so thank you very much, but you can leave with your parents now.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Go running to the door.
We're headed to the soccer game now.
Yeah,
Ah, good. We're gonna go support other team sports.
How you doing?
but if you really want to stay, thank you, Ryan.
Okay, so we'll move on to our regular meeting items, starting with 25-027, meeting minutes of September 16th.
Thanks, Ryan.
Thanks.
I reviewed the minutes and I think I wrote to Angelica the same day and said they were great. So, oh, good. I just happened to be online. Do I have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? It is unanimous. And now I lost my agenda. We have warrants 13 through 16. I think 13 and 14 are Sean.
Yes, so I have warrants 13 and 14 for the sum of $91,048.65. Major things, we had some work, Cushing performed a couple of different jobs for us, $26,840. We had some crack sealing for $2,500. Frank D's, that's the painting, right? And that was the start of the paint work, $4,833.33 to be precise.
At the library.
At the library. And then the last thing I have note here is Kramer's for $1,025.97. That's it.
So the total amount was,
$91,048.65.
do I have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve warrants 13 and 14 for the amount of $91,048.65.
Second, I can't.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? It is unanimous. And then Jaren is now our this quarter reviewer, and you have warrants for 15 and 16.
Yep. So 15 and 16 were 604, 193 and 64 cents. Items of note, the biggest chunk of it was the RSU 38 payment for $363.99 and 85 cents. There were a couple big ticket items in here. Cushing Construction did a bunch of work. I believe that was on Plains Road. Dave Morrow switched our electrical service from Old Kent's Hill to Main Street, so hopefully we'll get electricity back faster now in case of an outage. There was 12,000 to mainland, that was permitting, a majority of which was permitting for the fairgrounds project. We paid $6,648.63 for dispatching. And everything else is relatively small. And then 16 is payroll.
Make a motion to approve warrants 15 and 16 in the sum of $604,193.64.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Thank you, Jaren, for taking on this role for this quarter. Really appreciate it. Seeing no more discussion, all those in favor? It's unanimous.
Thought you were going to
Thank you,
forget that part.
It's like,
What's coming next here?
Just trying to save 30 seconds.
Do we want to take item 25031 out of order since there are folks here for
We
that?
let all the rest of them go early. We ought to do the same for these guys, don't you
I
think?
think so.
Clear the
Yeah,
room
I think
out.
so.
Is that all right with everybody? All right, we'll move ahead with consider junkyard and automobile graveyard permit applications. Chip, you probably have something brief to say? See, this is almost.
Give me a
at the
second.
end.
So as I said last year, my job is once a year to sign these guys up, have them report in as to the state of their yards. Are they clean? Are they keeping it up? Are they making them better? And the good news here is all three of the yards that I inspect and work with, Ken's, Mark, Antique Owners, Cyrus, and Seth and Lucas, stop the madness. Lucas Auto Parts and Salvage have all done an outstanding job. They're dealing with a tough market. The scrap and so forth is way down this year. But they've all done really well. And during the year, they've cleaned up their places, and so it's fun to work with these guys. Ken and Mark, they have a nice yard over there. A lot of stuff's been straightened out. They've had a hard year, I'm sure. Best one is if you ever get a chance to go over and see Cyrus's place. The old World War II stuff and everything's pretty cool. But anyways, they all did a good job, and I'm recommending that renewals be approved with conditions as stated on their permits, and that's about it.
Well, thank you to Ken and Mark for coming. Appreciate that. You're the only ones who consistently come every year. It's nice to see people. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the 3 permits as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? It is unanimous.
Jeff, I'll get your permit tomorrow.
And you don't have to stay either.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
You don't have to run out the door, though.
Are you here for an appointment? Well, since we've been out of order, let's just continue the trend here.
Keep it going.
We don't want to make you too special by making you wait all night. So this is item 25, well, let's do both of them, 25029 and 030. Is that all right?
Sure.
So the first one is to consider the appointment of election officials and a warden for November 5th. Election and referendum voting. I think we've already approved the slate of officials, correct?
You've done that once, there has been a modification, so I have a new set for you to sign.
Okay,
Because we'd like to have you guys sign.
that wasn't in the packet, was it?
It was.
It was? I thought I
Yeah, it
only
was the
saw the
second
word.
page, so it was tucked in, it was after the warden, it went warden, and then the listing of,
It's not in the packet.
Nope, it's not in the packet, there's just the
It
word.
goes from the warden to Andrew.
well, that one didn't make it through, but I would appreciate if you could all take a look at this and approve it, because that would be,
If you would
That's-
pass it over, I
that's
will
the-
read it off and
that's
we'll
the
approve
ideal.
it, I'm sure.
Oh, I see. This is for all the electors.
these are the staff, yeah. So you can pass it over to Catherine, she'll read it aloud. Unless you want to, Steve.
I'll be glad to, but, Catherine gets to.
All right, so the first one is to appoint Sonia Clark as warden. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve Sonia Clark as warden.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? It is unanimous. Now we have the appointment of the 2024 general election and referendum election ballot and election clerks. The Democrats listed are Greg Durgan, Karen Peterson, Thomas Maloki, Kim Whitman, Elaine Katz-Hanisch, Andrews Tolman, Lorraine Clark, and Donnell Nowak. The Republicans are Marilyn Palmer, Grace Keene, Sonia Clark, Catherine Woodsum, Steve Woodsum, Thelma Parks, Emily Roderick, and unenrolled is Alan Curtis. Would anyone like to appoint the slate as read?
I'll make a motion to appoint the slate as read.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? It is unanimous. And now we will get,
Andrew.
if my mouse works correctly, we have an application appointment for, first-time appointment for Andrew Petrosky. If you would come to the microphone, please, and introduce yourself and tell us what you're here for.
Yeah, thank you for having me. My name is Andrew Petrosky. I'm here for the Readfield Rec Board position. I have two young kids in the area, a 9-year-old and a 6-year-old that go to the Readfield grade school. I grew up in the Winthrop area, so I am somewhat local, moved back 5 or 6 years ago. I've been helping out with the youth sports, coaching soccer and baseball for the last 4 or 5 years. I recently got certified as the USA soccer coach for travel soccer in the area. So I've been very involved in the sporting groups around here and want to do what I can to help the community, and felt like joining the rec board was the next step, and do what I can to improve and grow some of these groups around here.
Like it.
You're a busy man.
Yeah.
Well, the rec
Sounds
is very
good.
active, so it's good to have someone that understands the scope
Yeah.
of what they'll be doing and the amount of effort involved, so.
Yeah, and I know Jen Worthing and I know Matt LaJoy very well and all those guys, so pretty involved with that group.
Thank you very much for being willing to take this on. We appreciate it, and I'm sure everyone on the board does too.
All right, thank you.
Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to appoint Andrew Petrosky to the Readfield Recreation Committee from a term of 10/21/24 through 6/30/2025.
All right, second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? It is unanimous.
Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much.
And you may leave as well.
All right, I was a little worried.
I've never cleared. We have really cleared this room out. For those of you watching this recording online, there was standing room only, and now we have Chip.
Which, if you guys want to talk about the code report.
That's the next agenda item anyway.
So
We're gonna
that's,
get rid of Chip too, take it out of order?
Let's whip through.
hi, Chip.
Would you like me to present this, or would you just like to ask questions?
I think we can just ask questions.
That would be
We saw the
great.
report in the packet. It looks like you're staying busy.
Yes, ma'am.
I appreciate your report, Chip. I like to just kind of see how we're doing. My only question is, last year we did a change to the rates. So we're this must be our 4th or 5th quarter since we changed permit rates. And I
Right.
just wondered, we're seeing it. Do you get any weird questions about that, or we just,
No, it
nobody
was well
cares?
accepted. This will be, that we've been through 1 full year of it. Nobody questioned the rates. I think they're very fair. They're, up substantially from what they used to be. And we're on par with, towns our size. And, like I said, it's very fair. We give them good service. We do our inspections on time. They're very happy with that. And, if there's issues, we try to do that to the best of ours. So, I think we have a pretty good rep with our department.
Good. I liked the way it was categorized, so we could kind of keep track of different bigger projects that are going on in town. And a nice little tribute to Woody there at the end. Yes,
God
Jared?
So just a quick question on the permits issues. You have a column for solar, and then you have a column for additional remodel, solar again, and driveway, so.
Yeah, that was a mistake.
That's just a
So
typo.
solar is solar. The rest
Okay,
is.
and it's not included in.
I kind of
the-
pulled it out this year because there's been a lot of solar. It doesn't look like it. But there's been a lot of calls. We did our solar land ordinance, and it's been phenomenal. Everybody's copied us, and all the construction people, the contractors and things, they're very confused because it's different with the United States and it's different with the state of Maine, but we're different. And so we've had a lot of applications come in that went back. We've had a couple that came in, they came back, did it right, but they didn't install it right. And I stick to the guns. And, they make sure that they have that 3-foot passageway on the ridge and on the side. And that's really important to me. So I work with the guys too. But it's worked out well. Sorry about the double.
Yeah, no, I just appreciate having it broken out, so it's
Yeah.
nice that you did it that way.
So, thank you very much. Appreciate you being here, and it was good to have the automobile graveyards part and your report as well.
Thank you.
And you may feel free to leave, since everyone else has. But now Bruce is here, and he'll just have to
And
stay.
he's gonna have to stay for the whole meeting.
That's right.
He's in it for the duration.
Changing it again.
His part's coming up
He won't
soon
believe
enough.
us that this was, Bruce, 10 minutes ago, there was standing room only in this room.
Don't worry.
Then we
Then
told
you
him, then we
walk
told him you were coming, Bruce, and then they all left.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so back on track, we're in communications, select board communications, general information, and any report outs on select board goals. Anybody want to start?
Yeah,
Jared?
go ahead.
Sorry.
I didn't realize you had your hand up.
Yeah, that's all right. So I just was hoping that everyone in the town, including the select board, would have .gov emails by now, but that did not occur. That was obviously my goal by the end of last month. So it still is gonna happen. I just don't have a timeline for you guys. And I'm not gonna report on open space because Bruce is here and I'm gonna let him do it.
Great, thanks. Dave?
I just, a lot of one-on-one conversations with past, present, and potentially future contractors as far as the plow contracts go. Getting a lot of good feedback and hope to have more and more each week. Compile some information and some ideas.
Great.
Stay tuned.
We will.
Oh, no doubt about it. That's a big one, Dave, so I'm glad you're doing that. Thank you. Seriously, that's a big one.
Well, we'll see if it does any good.
Well, there is that.
You gotta try, at least you're trying.
That's right.
So, that's a good start.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I was just gonna, I announced at the last meeting that I was hosting a fundraiser event at the Weather Vane yesterday. I just wanted to tell you all how it went and thank some folks. We had over 20 donors donate some raffle items. We had about $2,000 worth of prizes to give away, and we raised over $2,000 yesterday. So I'm pretty happy with matching the prize worth. Real big thanks to John and June at the Weather Vane for hosting us and donating 20% of the sales from yesterday as part of that fundraising effort too. So I had to make some children cry when they weren't allowed to sing any more Taylor Swift songs. But it went really well. And I had a great day. So it was really just, it was great to just see how many people showed up for the fundraising. So thanks to everybody that did.
I just have one really short thing, and that is that, been working with Steve Vos, the adult ed director at the school, to try to encourage someone to, as it's starting to get colder now, they're gonna do the senior citizen walking during the week again, but still trying to find somebody willing to be the person kind of who will open school up on the weekend. So if we can make that happen, we'll also do weekends.
Great. And I'd just like to thank Steve DeAngelis and your son Tyler
Oh, yes.
for opening their property up at the Sturtevant Hill Road. I don't know what the address is, but the Old Smith Homestead for the Readfield Historical Society. It was the largest walk of the year, certainly, and one of the largest ever. There were like 40-plus people there. It was really interesting, and what a phenomenal job on the whole property.
Thanks.
So-
It was actually, it was very cool. I think one of the best part for me and for Tyler was how many of the Smith relatives came and really appreciated what we're trying to do there and try to keep true to the history of the place, and including the fact that, we're going to call it the Smith Farm still. That's the way it should be. It does not need to get renamed,
And they even got into a little family argument
Yeah,
a couple times over, no, the tree was over there, no, it was over here, nope, well, she's buried over here, nope, she's over there, okay. It was
really good,
wonderful.
but That's cool. Thank you, Kathy.
Yes.
Appreciate that.
Okay, moving on to staff communication, we have the town manager's report and the treasurer's report. That would be Eric.
Okay, so a lot of activity happening. We had a number of fundraisers. We had Sean's karaoke, which there was a lot of Taylor Swift. I was there for an hour and I probably heard 4 Taylor Swift songs.
There was more than 4.
There was more than 4.
For sure.
I guess it just continued after I left.
Were you singing all of them, Sean? Yeah.
In my sleep.
But we also have the trunk or treat coming up, not related to the fairgrounds, but at the fairgrounds this Saturday evening. Is that 5 o'clock to start on that, Sean?
I think you're correct.
Yeah, I think it's like 5 to 6 or 5 to 7. But in any event, we're going to have that. Keep an eye on the Facebook and the town website for any fine details on that. But that'll be happening. They've got 19 trunks lined up already, so those kids are going to get a lot of candy. So just beware if you send your kids down there. So I'll go through, it's been about 5 weeks since we've had a report out, so I tried to fit it all into one page. I had to push the margins a little bit.
4:30.
But I did keep it to one page.
4:30 to 6, sorry.
5 to 10, but yeah, so at 4:30 is when it starts. Thanks for clarifying that, Sean.
And the movie is 6 to 8.
Awesome, okay, and the movie's going to be
The Addams Family.
Addams Family.
1991.
Great, it's a classic, yeah. So I'll start off with some staff updates. The staff did attend the MMA convention. That was very well worth it. I particularly had an interest in the sessions on housing and short-term rentals and also web accessibility, because those are things that are kind of coming up in discussion in the town of Readfield. So it was a good convention. Everybody benefited from that. It was announced at the convention that Samantha Horn, who is one of our residents and a former school board member, she was appointed the director of the Maine Office of Community Affairs. So that is quite an accomplishment. I just wanted to recognize that. Also, our assessing agent, David Perdue, he's not a town employee, but he received a Lifetime Achievement Award from his peers and the Professional Association of Assessors in Maine. And that was pretty phenomenal. So we've got some great people in town and great people working for the town. With that, the front office staff have been very, very busy. This is kind of a double duty period where they are spending a lot of time doing tax collection and also preparing for the election. We've had over 500 absentee ballots issued. It's quite a thing they've been working on over the past month, and it's going to continue on, as you know, for the next 3 or so weeks. So I just want to give them some credit for working extra hard and getting a lot of things done. Also, Jen Worthing is continuing to be an active employee. She really is stepping into the middle of a lot of things at once. And she's being very flexible and approaching it in the way that I hoped the person in that position would, which is to work to make connections in the community, push projects forward, also looking ahead, and also kind of just pulling things together and finding those beneficial synergies that happen between groups of people. So she's done a great job on that. I just wanted to recognize her for that. We have a staff meeting scheduled for the 24th. We're probably going to go to Lakeside Orchard and have some cider and donuts on the town. That'll be a little treat for them. But we're also going to talk about things like workplace safety and how to keep your desk clean and all that. So, it's not all fun and games.
Your desk?
Good luck with that one. But anyway, so we're also getting close to the effective completion date for a GIS project that we've been working on. Angelica's been a key part of that. We're very near that. It's fitting very well with the work that we're doing with the revaluation, because we're finding some of the gnarliest little problems and nuggets and little things in the corners that have been left alone for 20 years because no one wanted to deal with them. And those things are coming forward, and we're at the very least acknowledging some of them because there is no practical resolution, but others we are able to address issues with naming, numbering, yeah, it's been a good exercise and very beneficial to the town, even though it did take a lot of staff time. So we'll have that site live, I expect, probably by the end of November. I keep pushing it back a little bit, but really it is quite a lift. And when it's done, we'll have resources that'll be good for residents and professionals, people doing, anybody looking to do work with the planning board or put a permit forward. Also be beneficial to any real estate agents because they will have overlays showing the property boundaries as they exist on our tax maps, which are different than deed boundaries, but they're close. And also things like soil types and the zoning that we have in place. So tools for everybody, and that's going to be a really positive thing. We had some repair work done at the solid waste compactor. The solid waste committee also met, and we are working on the collection day for hazardous waste. That's going to be in July. We're trying to get a late July date, and we'll be working back, but we expect that will be in July. Let's see, projects, maintenance related, painting at the library is underway. We are also going to be starting our LED light conversion at the library and at the town office, but that'll be starting at the library on the 25th. And that's exciting. That really wraps up a majority of the improvement work at the library. The one thing that is still kind of hanging out there, and I need to do a little bit more looking about the budget, would be the paving. If it happens, it'll be in the spring, but it might be wise for us to push that out another year because we've been spending a lot of money on that one building. And I think it'll be okay, but I just, I want to make sure that we're not over-investing in one structure at the expense of others, but we're making great progress there. And that is a grant-funded project where 80% of the cost for the LED lighting is paid for by the state of Maine. The town pays 20% share. Let's see, roadside work. Maintenance has been very, very busy lately. They've done brush as a priority, but also they've been managing a number of other projects that have been ongoing. Roadside mowing's done, the fairgrounds fields are mowed, disc mower has been taken off the tractor and put away. Again, a lot of stuff's happened in the past month. Cushing started and completed the work at Plains Road, which we talked about in the budget. That's the largest project we've done for what I would consider capital maintenance in the town, because we are really investing heavily in ditching and drainage and culverts and design work that actually should help deal with the big increase in water we've seen. So that was a large project for us and a large project for John, but it came together very nicely. If it rains again, we'll find out how it works. I'm not
sure
complaining
it
or
will.
asking, I'm just saying. But crack sealing is complete for the year, as is road striping. We did the crosswalks and the stop bars and things like that. We held off on long lines because if you do it this time of year, it'll inevitably snow 2 weeks later, and then it'll get scraped up, and people complain about that. So we're going to do it in the spring and have a nice long-lived fog line. Let's see, I did meet with Scott Horn to talk about the current and future plowing situation as he saw it, and I'm sure Dave will talk to him as well at some point if you haven't already. But he's eager to do a very good job with this year's contract, as he has done with the last two. We did make a CPI increase for inflation, and it actually came in about 1.5%, less than I thought, but because we use the transportation CPI, which is heavily tied to fuel prices really haven't changed that much. So it's been a modest increase, which is good for us as a town. And I also met with an engineer to talk about the future of the salt sand shed and what we might do on that. So we're gonna get a quote, another quote coming in for that work. So moving ahead with that, yeah.
Do we have one more year after this winter with Horn?
We have it's an option,
Okay.
and I'm working hard to try to convince him that that's a really good idea. I'm not sure we'll get there, but I'm certainly making the effort.
Okay.
And he's been good about it so far. So we'll see. I
So
expect
be busy, Dave.
I expect we'll have a better answer by February,
Okay.
but it'll take some time to figure that one out.
So it's
But
not a mandatory option. It's not that if the town chooses it, it has to be provided.
That's right, but I think what I'd like to do is have an idea from him before we put it out to bid, because if we don't have to put it out to bid this year, it'll give us a little bit more time to get things in order. But we still may want to put it out to bid. That's always an option too, because maybe someone's gonna find a way to save us $100,000 a year. I'd love to see that. But it might be worth having that discussion.
Okay.
Yeah, so let's see, the fairground project is moving forward. It was presented at the planning board as an initial completeness review discussion. There were some good questions asked. I've done a kind of a follow-up memo to help push that forward process along. We will have a public hearing. That's where we're going to have probably more questions. We'll have the abutter notifications out, and they will be invited to come participate in that. That'll be early November, the first meeting in November for the planning board.
That's coming right up.
It's coming right up, yeah, so we're excited to see that move along. Fundraising, as you know, is ongoing. And the road committee met, and they are eager to participate in the major projects that we have ongoing, and that includes, you know, the salt sand shed discussion, winter plowing contracts, traffic calling policies and the like. I did provide them with the current contract to review. They were instrumental in the last revision, and I'm sure that we'll be talking with them as well as the contractors about, you know, what ideas can come forward. So they're engaged. And I have been looking into wages. This is kind of the first start dabbling on the budget. And it looks like, I mentioned CPI for transportation, CPI otherwise is somewhere around 2.5%, and might get to 3% by the time we finish up the year, but it's looking like it's going to be no more than 3% for CPI, Consumer Price Index. And that's, again, pretty normal. Inflation usually is 2 to 3% when you are in normal times, and we're getting back there. And much, much better than the 5 to 8% we've seen in the past 3 years for increases. So that's all good news. And that's my town manager's report.
Any questions
Any
for Eric?
questions? Yeah.
Okay, we'll make you do the treasurer's report.
All right, let me
Sorry.
swallow a little bit here before I start talking again. So this one will be quicker. It's a lot, things look very normal here. Check reconciliation was completed through September 30th. This report covers the month of September. Our accounts were in balance. There were no issues reported. Investments will be discussed more later in the meeting, but I'm actually very pleased with how our returns are looking. The economy seems to be doing quite well. We've seen stocks perform well. We're in a very low-risk portfolio, but some good returns still. And our CDs and CDARs are showing good returns. That's going to start to diminish, but we'll talk about that more later. The Budget Committee is going to be holding their first meeting in mid-November. I won't be available for that. I'll be at Deer Camp, but we'll make sure Angelica's there along with...
I'm gonna be at
Maybe Teresa will be there. Anyway, they're
Is
going to...
anybody not going to be at Deer Camp?
It's a good week. It's a good week. It's got the holiday. But anyway, that budget process is getting started, and I'm excited to see that happen. I'm really optimistic we're going to have some good numbers and be able to get things back in line with how I'd like to see them happen, which is a more modest rate of increase. And the school also seems to be very much committed to that. And I want to thank Bruce, who's here, for encouraging and maybe even spurring on the return of the Budget Committee to the school board budget process, because that's going to be a value, I think, and it's going to make it easier for towns to have representation earlier and more often in that process. So we're getting underway with that. My comments on the budget, really, everything should be about 25% revenues and expenses. Transfer station fees are up, which is a good trend. We've seen depending on the type of revenue stream, there have been some things that have decreased, and I'm going to do a bit more looking to see what's contributing to the little individual declines that we've seen. But overall, it's looking quite good. Motor vehicle revenue is up, and this is another good indicator. We're up, I think, 6% for the year. Let me go back here. Motor vehicles,
5.9.
5.9 for the year, so that's a healthy increase. This year is only 4%, or this month, excuse me. But when I see those numbers, that's good. That's actual year-to-date and actual month-to-month comparisons, so that means that people are feeling more confident and or paying more for vehicles. One of those is really good. One of them is
Not so good.
Not so good, but in any event, the revenue's there for us, and we appreciate that. Total receipts are up, but a lot of that has to do with tax collection. We continue to do a really good job of getting tax bills out, so the money's coming in more promptly, it seems, every year. So a lot of that is just tax revenue. And that's really it. Everything else is pretty normal. The one big outlier is debt service at 90% expended. The reason for that is that in September, we pay our bulk interest and principal payments. And in the April timeframe, we only pay interest. So it usually is that 90-10 split because that's about how our debt service breaks down. And that's my report for the month of September. I'm happy to take any questions.
Looks like everybody's happy.
All right.
Nicely done, and now you can have a rest.
Thank you.
We have board committee and commissions and departments, and we did receive minutes from the following committees: the Connectivity Committee, the Open Space Working Group, the Planning Board, and the Trails Committee. And people are getting more and more up to date. So that's a good thing. So Ralph is always ever present with us as we get closer and closer to being timely. Next item is an update from the Open Space Working Group, and we have Bruce Burgoyne here with us.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
I guess I'll make a quick comment up front, Eric. Thank you for mentioning that about the RSU adopting a budget committee. I want to deflect 75% of the credit of that to my wife because she's really the person who did some calls and some background on that. So the open space quarterly report to the select board, I think we were appointed in June or July. And we've met 3 times, once in August, once in September, in October. So this is kind of the quarterly report. And so maybe it's slightly late, I don't know. But we anticipate that we will be meeting again in November, December, and be on track to make sure that we do keep you quarterly updated. And I would say if there's any reason to have us in for any other kind of update or discussion, very open to that. So the first 2 meetings we had were really largely about organizing ourselves and looking at available resources and documents. We did spend some time in the 3rd meeting, which was just on October 9th, concentrating on defining open space. And we largely agreed that the 2006 definition with some additions, we'll put some additions in that, is really very good and primarily will be used to kind of be top of mind as we move forward. It probably will end up being the last thing we write in the report to make sure we've captured everything. I do anticipate we'll be focusing on looking at the open space inventory and uses over the next few meetings. And I've also been tasked from the open space working group to work with the town manager to make sure our documentations get online in actually 2 levels. Kind of completed information, that's like minutes, agendas, and any completed reports or segments of reports, and then sort of like a working document dump. So it's not final, and I think it's comparable perhaps to what you did with the comprehensive plan. I have talked with Eric, we'll make an appointment, probably take about an hour. I'll ask your select board representative to join us on that because I think he can help guide us on that in particular. So I would look forward to the town website having a little bit more information on it that will be useful, and it will actually be useful to the group itself. So there are a couple of items I think that would probably interest you the most. I know there's been some discussion about when do we produce things. And there was a lot of discussion at some point about, boy, we really hope to see deliverables in 6 months. So I'm here to say that's not realistic. We were appointed for a full year. I expect we'll take a full year to do the work to update a good open space plan. And that's not to say that there can't be some sort of interim report, or particularly if things come up that affect the town's consideration of the budget or the warrant, I would think we would have some sort of interim, report in regards to that. I did, because there actually are 2 members of the budget committee who serve on the open space working group. One's a representative, I think, and the other one's a town just a citizen member, but they're both there. I have offered to at least meet with them. We don't have a budget, so to speak, but I do know that open space is considered within the budget and warrant articles. So I hope to speak to that with them, or at least answer questions. The second item is, I do anticipate we're going to need some technical planning assistance. This is a fairly heavy lift when we get into the inventory and the mapping work itself. We don't anticipate doing any mapping work to any great extent, but we do anticipate interpreting it and some planning guidance, perhaps from different resources that Eric might be aware of with, what's the working group in the county?
The KV Cog? Or,
KV Cog,
or,
yeah. I'm sorry, I was representative on that a couple of years and completely
that's
slipped
okay.
who they are, but KV Cog or whatever. So I think you can anticipate we're going to come back and ask for some resources, and where that will come from and so forth, you'll determine that. Maybe that comes out of the open space working money that we have set aside. I don't know. My goal would not to be doing any significant expenditure in that area, but because we have some pretty good resources on the working group itself. But I do think to bring things together and to kind of herd all the cats, we're going to need that perhaps help. So other than that, if you have questions or feedback or direction, I really do welcome them.
Well, let's start with budget, Eric. Did we set aside any money in this year's budget for writing the report? Because I know we had talked about using a consultant because we didn't really want to put it to the group to have to write the actual report.
Yeah, so there are a few pots we could look at. We do have grant and planning funds, which are broadly intended to be used for things like this, support for document preparation. It's not just for grants or grant matching, it's for planning work. So this, to me, is very much planning related work. So we have that. I believe there should be $5,000 or $10,000 there. I think what Bruce is talking about likely wouldn't exceed $5,000, but I don't know. It depends on how involved the mapping is. That can be a time-consuming piece of this. Also, the kind of stitching things together, as Bruce is saying, having someone that's adept at that can take a little time. But we also have, as Bruce mentioned, the reserve itself for open space. And I think that developing the document that's going to help direct, in some ways, how that money might be spent seems a logical use as well. And we also have contingency funds if we find that we're not satisfied with one of those other two options with the select board. So you've got a few different options on how to pursue this. I guess from my perspective, I'd probably look to the actual fund balance that's there for this purpose first, because the direct connection secondary, I would say, would be the planning funds, which is more general, and then as a third choice, perhaps the select board contingency. But that's budget for me anyway.
Yeah, I would slightly disagree. I've tried not to touch the open space, even though I'm the one who brought it up. That money is kind of a set aside, I think, in citizens' minds. And I do think the work does relate, so you can make the case. But if we do have general planning money, I will say that, and we haven't polled ourselves in regards to asking that question. Our next meeting is October 30th. I expect to officially kind of hold the working group. I mean, this is a sense I'm bringing forward from them, and then write a request if that's their desire. I will say that the 2006 report we are largely satisfied with. That has really stood the test of time. It does need a really good update, and there are probably some areas it did not cover that should be covered. And we've talked about grasslands, for instance. That's not even mentioned. I think you did a word search in that document, it's not there. But in any case, so I think we have a good solid skeleton in place. But we're probably going to need some planning guidance, and maybe that planning guidance would also open our minds to some other directions that we need to consider. Okay?
I don't know, I have one more for me, but
Yeah.
there have been people, there are parts of the board who are very concerned with what the open space fund is actually for. Like specifically, what is it for? You know, there have been people who have thought that we were actually going to go and buy somebody's farm. And Eric has explained different times that it's maybe seed money or to be in a partnership with other conservation groups to help preserve some open space that might become developed land instead. Do you envision any part of the open space plan addressing that issue?
Yeah, I do. I think we should talk about that, and I'm not sure if that actually goes in the final plan or if that comes as a guidance thought during the budget process from the working group, perhaps in advance of the final report. I tend to, first of all, I tend to agree. It's to really enable the town to be somewhat nimble on purchasing conservation rights or helping something to happen. We're not going to come up with a list of parcels, for example, that the town should be buying. We might talk about some parcels that we should watch, I don't know. But in any case, and now I'm going to speak kind of personally because I'm not really representing the group, but I would characterize the open space finances, okay, as almost like a maintenance fund. If the town truly values open space, and that's what I'm hearing in terms of when I talk to citizens and in how I interpret some of the votes that I've seen in warrant articles, then you have to maintain, and you're kind of maintaining an idea or a concept or an ability. It's sort of like an insurance policy almost. Yeah, you insure this building, you don't really want it to fall tomorrow, but if it does, you want to be able to address it. And so I kind of look at that open space in the same way. And I often mention that, you know, we had an opportunity to look at a historical place in town when I was on the board, the select board, and we really could not react to it. We just, you know, we didn't want to see what happened, which was that the building was torn down that had historic value because they wanted to avoid paying taxes. And I don't know if it would have been conducive to do that, but I do know one thing, there was no way we could act because we didn't have the ability financially or flexibility to do so. Finally, saying all that, everything goes in front of voters. I mean, they authorize you to do this in a certain method and elect you to make decisions on that basis. So the discussion should always continue.
Bruce, can I challenge the group to kind of come up with a schedule of their monthly meetings to include some sort of public hearing, discussion meeting, you know, beginning of the year? I'd really like to see that forecast out.
Yep.
So if you guys can have that conversation at your next meeting, I'd appreciate that.
Yeah, that'll be on October 30th, and actually one of the things will be on the agenda would be to try to outline our work plan a little bit better. I think in your charge, we're required or asked to produce some hearings.
Yep.
Or, you know, open space hearings. And so we fully intend to do that. I would assume that they may not coincide naturally with the budget process itself, but they may include maybe in that window. We do have a place for comments both at the beginning of our meeting and at the end of our meeting, and we intend to continue doing that. We haven't had any public involved yet, but as we get our documentation online and do a better job with getting advanced agendas and so forth, hopefully we will draw some attention and people will engage.
David?
If you,
No, go ahead.
as far as the mapping and the funding goes, I kind of feel like that's putting the cart before the horse. I didn't feel like the charge of this committee was to go to that extent yet. I feel like it was to tell us what it is and what the money should or would be used for. So I think that's like after the fact, after maybe we or the voters approve that's what it should be used for, then we go to the mapping.
I think then, maybe, Dave, I have a fundamental misunderstanding of what the charge is from the select board, and it'd be good to correct that if that's incorrect. My perception was we were supposed to produce the open space plan. So we had one in 2006, we were supposed to look at that and update that. We're not really talking about someone going out and doing a great deal of mapping, but I think we have some resources. KLT is going to help us with that, that are interpretive in nature, so we kind of know what the inventory in town is. I think it's probably not possible to talk about investing and spending and so on and so forth unless you know how much you have, what kind of characterization it has, and so forth. So
Well, I
that's
mean,
kind
we
of what
must-
my understanding was.
We must have a pretty good idea of what land is owned by the town and what land is owned by like KLT and open to the public.
We do know that, yes, but open space.
where does
Open
open-
space, let me give you a quick example. There could be open space that is not necessarily a set of borders. It's a corridor that wildlife moves through.
But who owns it? Because
Various.
if I personally own it and you're gonna tell me it's open space, I think people are gonna have a problem
No, I
with
think
it.
we can define something as open space. We're not gonna tell people what, our charge is not to tell people what to do with their private property. I don't see that at all.
Right.
Yeah, that's,
Well-
but, I think we need to recognize that there's open space that exists on both public and private and, places like KLT land.
The type of mapping you're talking about is going to be consistent with the type that's already in the plan, but updating it?
I think it needs to be updated, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're not expanding this to a great degree. We're trying to
Yeah.
update and revise what's there.
Right, and if I can speak a little bit more to Dave's concern, because it's a good, valid concern. But if we've identified something that's within, let's say, a wildlife corridor, okay, that between deer yards, for example, there's movement. And a piece of land becomes available in that area, then we might want to work with KLT or some other entity or the landowner or whatever because it's become available, to do something about that, to preserve that kind of movement for wildlife or open space. So it's not to dictate to that person what they should be doing with that land.
And again, I feel that the voters and the people should know that's the kind of thing that they're planning to do with the money before we start mapping things and saying, well, this might be a potential place that we might want to invest money in. I think we're putting the cart before the horse. So those are the things that I'd like to see you define as what we're looking at as open space before we start spending money to do it. Because people might say, whoa, we don't want any part of that. So I kind of feel like why map it before we know if people want it or not?
Well, I'll follow the direction of the select board and how you do that and come to consensus on directing us. I'll certainly follow that. I do think that modern mapping is a resource that will help us in producing what you're talking about. So again, I'm not trying to argue with you at all.
No, I'm
just
not trying to argue with you.
Yeah, I'm just
either.
trying to state that I think it's a very useful tool for us to have in what I understand the charge from the select board to be. And we'll work with whatever tools you tell us we have.
Will the GIS data help with any of this, Eric?
Not particularly, because what we have is if we have anything that relates to this, is stuff that was from 2006. I think that there probably is, from my perspective, a need for an update, because the current plan includes maps, and the current plan includes some of this, assessment. And I think that is a valuable thing to have, and it's certainly up to the board, again, as Bruce said, about whether or not you want to have them update the plan, which would include likely updating to some extent the maps, or take a different direction with the plan and change the focus, or change the focus of the group, perhaps. But I certainly think that it's a good direction that they've taken to look at this, and I think it is a wise investment to have a good, solid understanding of what the resources are in general broadly, including some map updates, because it is not just policy, it's not just dollars. I hunt deer, I like to know where they are. I do that some by going out in the field and looking for them, but I think that having that understanding at a broad base transcends boundaries. It's not just whose property lines where, it's where the animals are, where the wildlife habitat is. And some of that's changed. We've had a fair amount of development in the last 20 years. Probably worth updating, in my view.
Switching gears, I think we're good to stay from just what I'm hearing, a balanced approach to updating the plan, not doing anything that's extraordinary above that. Personally, I like the idea of this coming out of our planning budget. I think that's what we had talked about previously. It seems to make more sense. I think that's what you were more comfortable with. I just have one comment, which is that last year, we didn't even discuss any funding for open space because we knew that the plan was going to be revised, and we felt strongly that we should revise the plan before we allocate any more funds to that area. And if we're not going to have this done for this fiscal year, which is fine, because we want to respect the expertise that the group has, I think we should then resolve that we're not going to budget for open space again this year because the plan won't be complete. I think that's due diligence to the process. So if you want to present that to your group, Bruce, and just see that they're comfortable with that approach, it would be nice to have their feedback, I think.
Yeah, I'll push back on that a little bit.
Okay.
And just to a slight extent. Because that was mentioned at our last meeting, and Jaren and I have talked about this. If open space is a value, and if it is viewed in sort of the maintenance insurance mode and nimbleness mode that I am talking about, rather than the acquisition of specific properties, then I personally think you should be adding to that fund, and that you should make the political case for that. And I don't think you should rely on the open space working group to do that for you. I do think we give you information in the ultimate plan, and whether you delay a year to make those kinds of recommendations based on that for whatever reason, but I don't think you should be hesitant about investing in that area. That's my own personal opinion. So I don't represent the group on that, but I would actually argue with my group on that.
I would be interested in just hearing, what the group had to say, or reading it in their minutes.
Yep, yeah, we're obviously going to discuss it.
Yep, great.
Thank you.
Well, appreciate all your time.
This helps a lot. We do have 10,000 budgeted for that grants and planning contract services line. We haven't expended any of that yet, so.
My goal too, I would say, would be to be modest and limited in that approach. I'm not trying to feed, a lot of expenditure on mapping or whatever. Update what we need or identify it's needed. And I think, actually KLT is going to be a great resource for us because they have some different purposes than us. Understand that completely, but I think their maps that they will provide us and information will be very helpful, and we'll be able to make some adjustments to some of that information.
Great. And you're welcome to leave if you would like, or to stay, whatever suits. Okay. Okay. Do you have anything you'd like to say as a member of the public, Bruce?
Well, yes, he does.
So whenever I do a public thing, I always like to thank the select board for serving. It's certainly a sacrifice on your part and time, but I hope you enjoy doing it. Thank you for representing us. I have received 5 complaints of political sign removal, or I should say destruction, within the town. I'm not even going to say that it's, fellow residents who were doing this. 4 signs were removed. One was run over, and it was really run over because the person really had to go out of their way to do it. One was stolen from private property, which really annoys me because it was not in the public way. It was actually about 10 feet onto somebody's lawn, and somebody was brazen enough to pull up, cross a pretty good ditch, and rip that sign out. So, to me, I've worked with a couple of campaigns, so that's how I ended up with the complaint. And I'm just passing that thought on to you. Any person, this is law, any person who takes, defaces, or disturbs a sign placed within the public right of way in accordance with section 113A subsection 1 paragraph L commits a civil violation for which there is a fine of up to $250. And that section, it goes on to say it doesn't apply to the person authorized to remove the sign. So for example, if you put a political sign at the boat launch, DOT does not allow those. And they will remove them. They're a person who can remove that. And so I know that, so whenever I'm associated with a campaign, I say, don't put signs there. If you do, you will lose it. It's part of the civil discourse. It's part of free speech to have signs. There are some signs and flags perhaps I don't agree with, and that's all fine and well. I'm not going to try to take my truck and steer my tires over them or tiptoe on the lawn. And I kind of don't like the fact that I have signs that I have a game camera on, but I do. So I would just hope that people would be respectful of each other on that basis. And why I'm bringing this up to the select board is because you're in the normal discourse as our leaders in town, and I would just hope you would I don't ask you to go out and evangelize on this, but in the normal course of discussion, if it comes up, please say, you really shouldn't be doing that or whatever. If you do want to report it, call the sheriff's office. Do not call on the emergency lines, please. And the sheriff can have somebody out here and they can write up a report. But I would hope we just wouldn't engage in this activity because I think I would really like our sheriff to spend time on other things, but this is a violation of law, so it should be enforced.
Thank you. It's unfortunately not the first time this has happened in our town. It often happens during town elections as well. So a reminder to the public that tampering with signs is not allowed. It's illegal. Good points. Is there anyone online who would like to make a comment? Okay, we have already done the first part of new business.
25032 is your next. I know
Municipal
that we
investments
have
and
jumped all
investment
over.
strategy.
No idea where we are.
We're now going to follow a
Or we're
really
supposed to be.
good
We
order.
have 3 items left. The municipal investments, a CMP poll permit, and budget goals for the next fiscal year. So we're down to
Like
page, anybody
31?
know?
31, is it? The top of the CDRs and CDs?
Yes.
That's it, sir.
That's page 31. Eric, I assume this is just a report out. We're not having anyone join us tonight?
Yeah, no,
Okay.
I did talk to Sam Tippett, who runs our investments through LPL Financial, which is essentially, a lot of that is just cemetery trust funds.
Right.
Things like that. But it's an interesting portfolio that we have, and it's performed quite well. But I guess I'll start with talking about the CDs and CDRs. I tried to break this out and color code a little bit, because you guys like the colors. I like the
I
colors
do
too.
not like the colors. I don't see them.
Right, 'cause he doesn't see them.
I hate the colors.
So the first 4 are grouped together, Steve.
First four,
Good, all right,
and
thank
those
you.
first 4 are CDs and CDRs that have matured. And so in FY '24, for the ones that we had actively invested in, the return was about $20,000. We became quite active with this year's budget in trying to put the money that we have, that we had previously just had in our checking account into a more active role to actually make revenue. And some of these have also matured. So the first two in the FY '25 kind of bracket have matured. The other 4 or 5 have not matured, but I'm likely going to be rolling those forward. And I kind of explained in the notes what I would like to do with those. And then if you move beyond that, getting into the FY '26, those 5. I haven't gone very far into FY '26 because I don't really want to go that far out. But what I'm seeing as key points here, one, these are very good investments for us that are incredibly safe. These are all FDIC insured deposits, guaranteed funds, and guaranteed returns from the banks that we invest in. And so this year we will be realizing very likely over $60,000 in revenue, which exceeds what we had budgeted. Part of this depends on the term and when they mature, whether or not that revenue comes in during the fiscal year or not. But this is a good thing, and it does help offset taxes by bringing revenue in, by putting money to work that we have that's there for other purposes anyway. It's in reserve for roads, or it's in reserve for unanticipated, payouts for wages, or whatever it might be, right? Those type of things, we have money aside, this is putting it to work. But one thing we're seeing also is that the returns are starting to diminish. By the end of by the end of next calendar year, we're probably going to be just over 3% for the rate that we're getting on these CDs. It's starting to drop pretty quickly, and everybody expects that it'll continue to drop. So what I wanted to say is those two things, and then pivot and talk about the LPL investments. These are investments that we have that they're compliant with our investment policy, but they are not in the most secure tools, which are the CDs and CDARs. They're in things like bonds, which typically have slightly higher yield. And that's the bulk of our investment. We have over $300,000 there. About 150 is in bonds. And those performed fairly well, 12% or so over the past year return. The more risky investments, which are still not that risky, are showing returns of 30% plus, but those are a smaller portion of our portfolio. So the net impact is that we have funds that went from, in the last year, 300,000 to 350,000, and had an average return of about 17%. This has been an extraordinary time in the last year, really. I don't expect, there's been a lot of ups and downs, but it seems to be more ups. But what I wanted to suggest to the board is that we might want to think about looking at some of these investments as an alternative place to put some of our money that we have, instead of just putting it in the bank. If we have enough cash to be solvent and to make sure we have money on hand for special projects and things, that investing in this type of portfolio might be another way to increase our cash flow and further offset tax impacts. Because if we can pull in 16% return on $1 million, that's pretty fantastic. That would easily triple what we would receive from bonds, or excuse me, from CDs and CDARs at this point, and that number is only going to drop. So I just wanted to say that those tools are available. They are allowed under state law. It's not something we've done in the past, but I'm looking to consider that more, because just like people with their own private checking accounts, if you have the ability to invest, say, in a piece of real estate, or invest even in stocks, that's a great way to put money that you have available to use, and it can bring revenue back to you to do things that you might not otherwise be able to do. So that's my bit on this. I'm happy to take any questions. If you have anything really technical, I'll call Sam Tippett, and he'll answer it in a day or two.
So I guess I definitely had a question as I was looking over this and listening to that, Eric. I guess I always, even for myself, I tend to be conservative in this particular area. And, I mean, you say, well, there's the potential of, if you're making 17% on $1 million investment, that's cool. But what if you lose 5% on that $1 million investment? That can
Yeah,
happen, right?
that-
I mean,
that
like-
can happen,
And
yeah.
especially, like, this seems like a weird time to me. They always say, don't time the market, you just put money in there and let it wait, But
Ride the waves.
it seems like a weird time to be saying, let's put some money in that. It's at a record high right now, right, or very close to it. So I suppose you could say, well, that's because things are gonna just keep on going. But I don't know, like, it does seem like a little closer to gambling.
Sure, yeah, no,
So,
absolutely.
so how do we like do that, Eric?
Well, so we have an investment policy that limits pretty significantly the types of investments we can make. So what you see in this portfolio are, some large cap, but mostly mid cap, and a whole lot of bonds. I guess the bonds, those are also diminishing on their returns. But what we've seen over the last decade or so that I've been watching this is there might be a year or two here and there where those investments don't go up as much as we'd like, or don't go up at all, or maybe even diminish a little bit. But over the course of the investments, just like every other piece of the market, the net is a positive gain. And it is a value question. Is the select board at all interested in that? I think it's worth looking at, but if you're not willing to accept a risk level with investing in the way that we invest with our perpetual care funds, because this is for cemeteries, right? So we know that this money really it's intended to be here forever. We're not pulling it out when the stock market's bad or when the stock market's good. It's there and it helps fund maintenance in the cemeteries. So it's a long-term investment, but I would say that you could arguably look at municipal funds in the same way. We're in the forever business, even if it's not just for cemeteries. But really, I just wanted to start the discussion. You've got some good points there about what level of risk the select board might want to take. Maybe we just say, hey, with this type of funding, the funds that we have available, we're not going to do anything more than FDI insured deposits or high yield checking accounts, which is what we've done, and that's okay.
I'd like to suggest that we solicit advice from Chris Salmons, who was on the board previously, who's on the budget committee and does this as her line of work. She was the last person that worked with you advising in conjunction with someone else, maybe it was with Sam, in looking, and Ralph, I think.
Chris and Ralph, yeah.
Right, looking at the employee fund and these funds, and trying to make the most of money. I mean, if you're putting it into bonds and making a better yield than you are with CDARS, bonds are secure. So I'd like some local advice from someone who's not going to stand to make any money from this. So I think that would be useful. It would give us some guidance that we could consider.
Yeah, no, I'll be happy to do that. And I'll, this is not a top priority. This is well, wouldn't it be nice if we could make a few more percentage points?
Yeah.
And again, I know this is different than what we've done in the past. I don't know beyond 10 years ago what the town had for an investment portfolio. I just don't, but
We made almost nothing.
yeah.
It was hardly growing. And that's when we started spending a lot more on cemeteries because we didn't have the money coming in from any investments. So the budget amount had to go up to maintain the cemeteries because they had been let go for a while. Okay, so you'll keep us informed on any progress or input that you get.
Absolutely.
If we can move on to the CMP poll permitting. This is really just kind of a rubber stamp, correct?
This is
for us?
perfunctory, yeah, because they've actually already installed one of the poles and they're looking to
That's how it read.
yeah, so
how it always
just
goes.
straight out, but basically they're looking to continue a line and they'll be removing a guy pole once they or guy wire once they have another pole set. But this does not look like an issue to me at all. This doesn't affect our right of way in any meaningful way. It does connect with Sturtevant Hill, but it's not an impact on our drainage or anything. So my recommendation would be that the select board sign this and authorize me to initial any other pages or areas that are requiring signatures.
And it did state that the rest of the polls are all in Winthrop, so it's just
Yeah.
one for us that completes a line.
And I'm fine with it, other than I don't really understand the map of the Puddle Dock Road. Why is the Puddle Dock Road on there?
Yeah, I don't know why they
Okay,
Yeah, because
Okay,
that's
so
in
it wasn't just me.
Manchester, right?
no, definitely not, yeah.
because it goes into Winthrop, so I,
Like Puddle Dock Road.
Right, it didn't even say that. You're right.
yeah,
It
'cause
said it
it's-
was on Sturtevant Hill and Cooper Road,
Yeah,
also known as
Cooper Road is what they call the Sturtevant Hill Road,
They
part of
probably put
the
the wrong map in or something, but
Yeah,
Must
yeah,
be.
either
but
way, I think we get the point.
it's done and it's
Right.
perfunctory for the most
It would
part,
be
so.
nice if you would make a note on that page, this map really doesn't belong here.
We didn't put a poll on the Puddle Dock Road and authorize.
No, I'm trying to,
Does someone want to make a motion to approve signing this and authorizing Eric to initial anything?
Make a motion to sign this
To sign this.
poll placement agreement and authorize Eric to initial and point out how poorly their map was.
sign that
Second.
piece and take care of the rest.
Dave liked that one.
I am a map reader.
It just,
I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? It is unanimous.
oh, I like that.
What's that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was Dave.
Yes. Okay, and then Eric has our annual budget goals and warrant worksheet. When do you want this completed by us and back?
Well, I mean, it's up to you really, but I'd say if you wanted a firm deadline, it would be helpful to have it before the first budget committee meeting so I can prime them on what your priorities are.
And when is that?
That is the 13th.
I thought we were
While
gonna
I'm
talk
at- while
about
I'm
it
at
tonight, so I
Deer
had
Camp,
little notes all jotted down.
Good job, Dave.
So, I mean, it's definitely
13th of,
November,
okay, so
Wednesday.
if we could get something back to you via email this week.
Yeah, that would be ideal, because I'll be in Friday, so, and then, but so that's so 11th, 10th, 9th, 8th. So November 8th would be the absolute drop dead deadline, but this week is great.
And Dave, since you have some stuff ready, why don't you share it? Maybe we'll all agree with you.
No, I think a lot of it was just similar stuff that we've already talked about, like not getting into any, we've got enough to finish now, kind of thing. Like, not biting off any more big projects or things that are long-term cost things, like the sidewalks and the fairgrounds.
Right.
I mean, although a lot of it is grant money, but we have to come up with the rest of it for one, and there is maintenance costs to them. So that kind of thing, because we saw last year how we didn't get the revenue sharing that we did in the past.
Yeah.
Kind of take and I remember Ron, our auditor, not this year, but the year before, saying, be careful of the free money you take in the programs that you implement, because that money's not gonna be there anymore. So,
Right.
we all agreed kind of on that at the retreat, I think, anyways, so.
Well,
And
you can
that-
count that one in for me. I mean, we all said it at the retreat, so that's
Right,
do we all agree that's a big goal?
and some of it we kind of hit on with, the open space stuff we already talked about somewhat tonight, so we'll get us out of here by 8. I'll turn it in.
Anybody else have anything they want to share on budget goals? Okay. The next item of business was upcoming meetings, future agenda items. Anything anybody wants to say? We're meeting twice in November. Is it on the 4th and the 18th?
Calendar kicks up now.
That's right, yeah, and the 4th will be just before the election, so it'll be
Right.
hopefully a short meeting.
Okay,
But I do want to mention about the election, if I can have 1 minute quickly.
Okay.
We did get a request from Kent Hill School to have law enforcement at the school.
the school requested, did you say?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so I
Are they expecting trouble?
well, I guess they are, but I said that it wasn't necessarily my first concern, but I do want to accommodate that, so I just wanted to let the board know that we're looking to have at least a half shift from 5 to 9, and we might even do an 8-hour shift to have someone there to help with their concern. So,
I mean, I feel like we need to support them because they're, like, let's use their school, but it is
Yeah.
depressing to even think that they think that's necessary. I hate that.
yeah.
It's a concern nationwide.
I know, but
Right.
and I don't like it.
Right, and I think, I guess my opinion would be, let's do the whole shift, because they've been gracious enough to open up their building to us and their property to have all these cars coming and going. And if they're feeling that that's something that's needed, I think it's the right thing to provide that. And they have a lot of students there and faculty, and I wouldn't want them to have to be witness to anything going on.
I was just curious what the KSO maybe had already intended, if you've had any conversations for any polling places or not.
Yeah, I mean, their intent was to show up if we called them. That was really it, you know? And I think to me, that's probably the right approach, but like I said, I do want to support, Steve's absolutely right, we want to support them, because this is the best polling place in the town. I know the election workers, it's a little bit more of a burden on them, but as far as the residents go, it could not be better. There's almost always enough parking, except for when there's a hockey game going on.
Right.
That happened once, but it is a good venue, and I wouldn't want to trade it for anything. Otherwise, we'd be, trying to fight over the elementary school gymnasium, and it's just,
Parking there.
it's a good place.
And I think
so.
we still have rules about public schools and having voting taking place. I don't think they can have school if we're using it as a voting place,
Yeah, and I know there are some towns that have to do that. They have to close down on that
because of
Tuesday.
security
Or move
measures.
them, or go remote or whatever, so.
Right, so,
Anyway, I just wanted to make you aware of that, because it was something that, touches on Bruce's, issue, although it's much smaller, about the signs, but, yeah, the election, it is a big thing, and it's been big for the staff. I will say the staff doesn't necessarily have a concern that they've expressed to me, so, I feel good about where we are. I just wanted to make sure you were aware of that.
do you want a motion from us, or
No, it's not necessary, it's just an
Okay.
update.
anything else? Seeing no other business, I will adjourn our meeting at 7:55.
5 minutes early.
No,
Not even a motion.
Record time.
20 minutes early.
Oh, yeah, actually, but you
Oh, we
said-
don't.